On a cold December evening in 2013, 20-year-old Heather Elvis vanished without a trace. The young lady, who seemed to have everything ahead of her, vanished quickly and left behind nothing but an empty car and a string of unresolved issues. Her disappearance shocked everyone, leaving behind only questions and confusion. As the search for Heather unfolded, a complicated love affair, lies and terrible betrayals came to light, exposing a horrific truth. What started as an apparently harmless crush developed into a deadly obsession. Heather Elvis is the tragic story that stunned a whole town, tore apart a family, and brought to light the worst aspects of human nature. Bright and self-sufficient, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, young woman Heather Elvis had always been very close to her family. Terry and Debbie, her parents, said their relationship was close-knit. Heather was the oldest of their two daughters. Heather was renowned for her ambition, creativity, and spunky attitude as she was growing up. She hoped to be a cosmetologist and worked relentlessly to realize her dream. Heather left her family's house and moved into an apartment with her best friend, Brianna Warlan, after graduating from St. James High School in 2011. Heather followed her passion for cosmetics while also working as a waitress at the Tilted Kilt, a well-known Scottish-themed establishment in Myrtle Beach. Her life appeared to be going according to plan. She was bright, autonomous, and surrounded by supportive relatives and friends. Everything changed one tragic day in June 2013, when Heather's life came into contact with that of 37-year-old Sydney Mower, a married father of three who worked as a maintenance worker for several local companies. Heather accidentally bumped into Sydney while carrying a tray of food at the Tilted Kilt, and they connected there. At first glance, it appeared to be a rather innocent meeting, but Heather was quickly infatuated. Sydney, who was charming and observant, liked the attention from the young woman. Having a habit of falling for older guys, Heather started to develop a fascination for him. Sydney started showing up at the restaurant more often within weeks. Heather's co-workers noticed the flirting between her and the other person, and the news spread. Heather had definite feelings towards Sydney. She posted about him on social media, even admitting she had a thing for older guys. Sydney responded to the attention even while married to Tammy Mower. On his days off, he started showing up at the Tilted Kilt with gifts like coffee and bagels for Heather. Their secret encounters and flirtations rapidly turned into a full-fledged romance. Heather admitted on her social media in late July that she was much too deep, and she started seeing Sydney more often, sometimes leaving work to meet him at remote sites. Sydney knew Heather was in love with him, but he kept telling her he was not happy in his marriage and would eventually leave his wife. Heather was initially caught up in the thrill of the affair, but as time went on, the truth of their circumstances hit home. Friends of Heather were worried. They cautioned her Sydney, a married father of children, was probably leading her on, but Heather refused to listen. The emotional rollercoaster was tiring Heather, and she started to get more and more frustrated by September 2013. She wrote mysteriously, "Once upon a time, an angel and a devil fell in love." It did not turn out nicely. Heather was clearly torn, yet still very involved in the relationship. Tammy, Sydney's wife, found out about the affair and things got bad. Tammy responded aggressively. She called Heather on the phone, verbally attacking her and accusing her of being just a booty call for her husband. Heather's roommate, Brianna, claims that the fight turned worse when Tammy gave the phone to Sydney, who yelled at Heather, insulting her and calling her names. Sydney's insults just added to the toxic character of the affair, which caused Heather to feel humiliated and worthless. Heather stayed in touch with Sydney anyway, hanging on to the hope that he would leave his wife for her despite the emotional abuse. But Tammy wasn't finished. She launched a constant attack against Heather. She flooded Heather's office with phone calls, sent explicit photographs of Sydney and Heather together, and tried to have Heather dismissed. Heather was heartbroken. Her once happy and easygoing life was now eaten up by anxiety and fear. Heather's psychological and emotional health suffered from Tammy's relentless attacks. In early September, Heather tried to end the affair, but she was still caught up in the chaos Sydney and Tammy had caused. Heather started to show signs of anxiety by November 2013. She worried she might be pregnant since she realized she was suddenly gaining weight. At work, she underwent a pregnancy test, but the results were unclear. Being possibly pregnant only made her anxiety worse because she knew Tammy's anger would get much worse if she found out. Heather was, however, resolved to carry on with her life. She was thrilled to begin a new chapter when she got a new makeup artist position at a beauty parlor. Still, she struggled to deal with the aftermath of her past relationship. Heather had hope for her life, though. She met a new guy, Steve Giraldi, right away. Heather had a first date with Steve on December 17, 2013. They drove around Myrtle Beach, looking at Christmas lights and chatting all evening. Steve later showed Heather how to operate a manual gearbox at a neighboring parking lot. Heather was ecstatic and sent Brianna and her father a picture of herself, driving with pride in her fresh talent. Heather called Brianna about 1:45 a.m. on December 18th, sounding frantic. She informed Brianna that Sydney had called her and said he had left Tammy and wanted to be with her. Caught in a storm of emotions, Heather decided to sleep on it and talk everything through with Brianna in the morning. Though they finished the conversation optimistically, that would be the last time anyone would hear from Heather. Heather's father, Heather Elvis, was informed the following morning that his daughter had gone missing. Her car was discovered abandoned at Peachtree Landing, a secluded area close to Myrtle Beach. Terry hurried straight to the scene and saw the car locked, but Heather's keys, phone, and handbag were gone. When he rang Heather's phone, it went straight to voicemail. Knowing something was horribly wrong, he joined the search in hopes of locating his daughter. The investigation quickly turned into a missing person situation. Local law enforcement joined Heather's friends and family in a large-scale search operation across Myrtle Beach and adjacent areas. But Heather showed no signs of being alive. It turned clear as the days went by that something more sinister had happened. Heather's phone had been turned off, and her car had been left at a distant spot. Police started to concentrate on Heather's closest associates, especially Sydney Mower. Sydney insisted he had nothing to do with Heather's disappearance when he was questioned. He said he had been with Tammy, his wife, on the night Heather disappeared. Investigators, though, were not persuaded. Through Heather's phone records, they started piecing together her last known actions and noticed a pattern of calls to a Myrtle Beach payphone. Surveillance footage showed a man using the payphone at the exact same time Heather had called it, and security cameras near Peachtree Landing captured a car matching Sydney's Ford F-150 driving toward the area around the time Heather's car was found. More upsetting information came out from further investigation. Sydney had bought a local Walmart pregnancy test shortly before Heather vanished, but when questioned, he said it wasn't for her. He insisted it was for his wife. Sydney and Tammy were obviously hiding something as the investigation went on. Days after Heather vanished, they had also put in a new home security system, suspiciously replacing the previous one. Sydney and Tammy were seen burning their rags and cleaning the passenger side of their truck when investigators examined the fresh footage. Growing evidence pointed to the Moas as the main suspects. Following months of investigation, Sydney and Tammy Moa were taken into jail in connection with Heather's disappearance in February 2014. Though Heather's body had not been found, they were first charged with murder. Though the arrest stunned the neighborhood, the search for Heather went on. Both Sydney and Tammy denied any involvement and claimed they were being framed. But the evidence against them was very strong. Following several years of legal conflicts and delays, Sydney and Tammy Moa were found guilty of Heather Elvis's kidnapping in 2019. While Tammy got the same sentence, Sydney was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Heather's body has never been discovered despite the conviction, and the case is still open. The Elvis family still believes that one day they will learn what happened to Heather and where her body is. Heather's family distributes missing person flyers every year on her birthday, in the hopes of drawing interest to her situation. They still work hard to provide closure for others who have gone through the heartbreak of losing a loved one without answers, as well as for themselves. Heather Elvis's story serves as a sad reminder of how swiftly a life may change, how an apparently innocent affair may become a fatal obsession, and how years of not knowing can last. Please come forward if you have any knowledge regarding Heather's disappearance. The family still hopes the truth will come out. Like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime stories and updates if you thought this one was interesting. Your help guarantees that people who are missing are never forgotten and helps to raise awareness of cases like this.